On a frosty Christmas night, I found a little girl shivering, looking for food in the trash. I invited her into my home to keep her safe. But when she gave my son a hug, a sound so impossible, so familiar, reached my ears that I froze. This was not a random act of kindness. This was a miracle. This is a story about a Christmas miracle that no one saw coming. Before we get into it, I have a quick question for you. What is your favorite Christmas movie? Let me know in the comments. And be sure to subscribe for our daily stories. Okay, let's head out into that snowy night. The house was too quiet for Christmas Eve. It was a silence that was a physical presence, a heavy, suffocating blanket that had fallen over our home the day my daughter, Luna, had taken her last breath a year ago. I had tried, for my son Jasper's sake, to create the illusion of Christmas. The tree was decorated, its lights blinking with a kind of forced, hollow cheerfulness. The scent of gingerbread hung in the air, but it was all a performance, a lie. A house with a missing child is not a home. It is a museum of what used to be. My grief for the past year had been a cold and isolating fortress. I had quit my job. I had stopped seeing my friends. My entire world had shrunk to the four walls of this house, and the fierce, overprotective, and almost suffocating love I had for my surviving son, Jasper. He and Luna had been twins, two halves of the same perfect, beautiful whole. Now I was left with only one half, and I was terrified that the world would try to steal him from me too. It was late. Jasper was in his room, quietly playing with his new toys from an early Christmas present. The snow outside was coming down thick and fast, a beautiful, silent curtain on a world I no longer felt a part of. The last, mundane chore of the night was to take out the trash, the final bag of wrapping paper and ribbons from our small, sad celebration. I pulled on my heavy winter coat, the cold of the garage a biting, unwelcome shock. I walked down the short, snow-covered driveway to the end of our quiet, suburban street, the plastic bag of trash in my hand. And it was there, in the pale, ghostly glow of the streetlight, that I saw her. She was a small, thin silhouette, huddled against the side of our large green trash can, her small hands digging through the bag of recycling I had put out earlier. A little girl, no older than 7, dressed in a thin, inadequate coat, her small body shaking uncontrollably in the freezing, biting wind. My first instinct, the one born of a year of grief and a profound, distrustful fear of the outside world, was a cold, sharp jolt of alarm. I was about to go back inside, to lock the door, to protect my own son from the dangers of a world that had already taken so much from me. But then the little girl looked up, her face a pale, pinched mask of cold and hunger, and in her eyes I saw not a threat, but a reflection of my own profound and deeply felt loneliness. The fortress around my heart, the one I had so carefully and so painfully constructed, began to crack. I couldn't walk away. I approached her slowly, my footsteps muffled in the fresh snow. "Hey there," I said, my voice a soft, gentle thing I had not used for a stranger in a very long time. "It's pretty cold out here to be all by yourself." She flinched, a small, cornered animal, ready to bolt. "It's okay," I said, my voice still a whisper. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Isolde. I live right here." I pointed to my own warm, brightly lit house. "It's Christmas Eve. No one should have to be alone or cold on Christmas Eve. I have some hot chocolate inside and a warm fire. Would you like to come in? Just for a little while?" She just stared at me, her large, dark eyes full of a quiet, weary suspicion. I did not move. I just waited. And then, after a long, silent moment that seemed to stretch for an eternity, she gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. I led the small, silent stranger back up my driveway and into my house, into the quiet, sad space of our grieving Christmas. I thought I was just doing a simple, decent thing. I thought I was offering a moment of warmth to a lost and forgotten child. I had no idea that I had just invited in a ghost, a miracle, and the one person on this earth who held the secret and the key to healing my own broken and deeply shattered heart. I led the small, shivering girl into my house, out of the cold, swirling chaos of the storm, and into the quiet, still silence of my own grief. The warmth of the house seemed to surprise her. She stood, dripping a small puddle onto the entryway rug, her large, dark eyes taking in the sad, solitary Christmas tree, and the single, lonely stocking hanging from the mantelpiece. My first act was one of pure maternal instinct. "Let's get you out of those wet clothes," I said, my voice a soft, gentle thing. I took her upstairs, to a room I had not entered in almost a year. It was my daughter, Luna's room. It was a perfect pink and white time capsule of a life that had been cut short. The air was thick with the scent of her, a faint, ghostly perfume of bubble bath and childhood. My heart ached with a familiar, crushing weight. I went to her dresser, and with a trembling hand, I pulled out a pair of her softest, warmest flannel pajamas, the ones with the little yellow ducks on them. The little girl, whose name I would later learn was Willow, said nothing. She just allowed me to help her, her small body passive and trusting in my hands. As I dressed her in my own lost daughter's clothes, I felt a pain so profound, so absolute, that I thought I might break. She was about the same size as Luna would have been. The pajamas fit her perfectly. I brought her downstairs and sat her on the sofa, wrapped in a thick, warm blanket, a steaming mug of hot chocolate in her hands. It was then that my own son, Jasper, emerged from his room, drawn by the unfamiliar sounds in our quiet house. He stopped in the doorway of the living room and just stared. He looked at the strange little girl, at her wet hair, at the familiar duck-patterned pajamas she was wearing. He was a quiet, serious boy, his own grief a silent, heavy cloak he wore at all times. I held my breath, unsure of how he would react to this intrusion. He walked slowly, cautiously, over to the sofa. He did not speak to her. He just looked at her. His head tilted, a look of profound and deeply sad curiosity on his small face. And then he did something that shattered my heart all over again. He turned, walked to the Christmas tree, and he picked up a small, brightly wrapped present from underneath it. It was the present I had bought for Luna, the one I had not had the heart to put away. It was a small, soft, and very cuddly polar bear. He walked back to the little girl, and without a single word, he just held the present out to her. The little girl, Willow, who had been so quiet, so still, so lost in her own silent world of fear, looked at the present, and then at my son's kind, serious face, and her own carefully constructed fortress of composure finally completely crumbled. A single perfect tear rolled down her cheek, followed by another, and another. And then she did something that would change the course of our lives forever. She put down her mug, launched herself off the sofa, and wrapped her small, thin arms around my son's neck in a hug of such profound and desperate gratitude that it was a thing of beauty. I watched them, these two small, sad children, a stranger and my own son, clinging to each other in the quiet, firelit room, and I stepped forward, my own hands outstretched to comfort them both. And that's when I heard it. It was not a sound, not really. It was a feeling, a vibration, a rhythm. The two small children were pressed so tightly together that the beat of the little girl's heart was a palpable, physical thing, a muffled, rhythmic thudding against my own son's chest. And the rhythm, it was a rhythm I knew, a rhythm I had memorized, a rhythm I had spent 1,000 sleepless nights listening to through the cold, hard disc of a stethoscope. It was a strong, but slightly and very uniquely irregular beat. It was the exact, familiar, and utterly, completely, and impossibly unmistakable heartbeat of my own daughter's brave and broken and beautiful heart. It was impossible, a trick of a greeting mother's mind, a phantom echo, a cruel, heartbreaking coincidence. But the rhythm was there, a ghostly, familiar song from a life that was supposed to be over. My eyes, frantic now, fell to the small, silver medical alert bracelet on the little girl's thin wrist, a bracelet I had not noticed before. My own breath caught in my throat. With a trembling hand, a hand that felt like it belonged to a stranger, I reached out and I gently, carefully turned the small silver tag over. And there, engraved in a neat clinical script on the back, was the truth. A truth so profound, so miraculous, so world-altering that the very universe seemed to stop. It was not a name. It was a date. The date of a surgery. The date of a gift. The date my own daughter's heart had been given to another. The heart of my daughter had not stopped beating a year ago. It had just moved. And on this cold and silent and deeply holy Christmas Eve, it had, against all odds and all reason and all logic, finally and miraculously come home. I stood in the warm, fire-lit living room of my own quiet, grieving house, my hand resting gently on the back of a strange little girl, and the world seemed to slow down and fall away. The sound of her heartbeat, a muffled, rhythmic thudding against my son's small chest, was a ghost, a song, a miracle. It was the rhythm I had charted in my own mind through 1,000 sleepless nights in a hospital room. It was the brave, struggling, and utterly unique beat of my daughter Luna's heart. The medical alert bracelet on her thin wrist was just a confirmation of a truth my own heart had already impossibly recognized. The two children, my son Jasper and this little girl Willow, finally broke their embrace. They were oblivious to the silent, world-altering revelation that had just taken place. They were just two small children who had, in a moment of pure, uncomplicated kindness, found a moment of comfort in a cold world. I knelt down in front of them, my own heart a chaotic storm of emotions. Grief, joy, disbelief, and a fierce, protective love so powerful it was a physical ache in my chest. "Willow," I began, my voice a little shaky, "that's a very beautiful bracelet you have. It says you were very brave, that you had a special kind of surgery." She nodded, her large, dark eyes still shining with unshed tears. "I got a new heart. Last year. On Christmas Eve. My old one was broken." Last year. On Christmas Eve. The same day my own daughter's beautiful, brave heart had stopped beating. My social worker said, she continued, her voice gaining a little confidence, that my new heart came from an angel, a little girl who went to heaven, and she gave me her heart so I could stay. I had to close my eyes, a wave of grief and a strange, profound, and deeply moving gratitude washing over me. I had been so lost in the darkness of my own loss, I had never once thought about the light my daughter's gift had created for someone else. "Why were you out there tonight, sweetie?" I asked gently. "Why were you looking through the trash?" Her face flushed with a look of shame. I I was looking for old Christmas cards, she whispered. The shiny, pretty ones. I wanted to make a thank you card. For my angel. I opened my eyes and looked at this incredible, beautiful child. This child who was carrying the very heart of my own daughter, and who had run away from a foster home on a freezing cold night, not for herself, but to find a way to say thank you. In that moment, the fortress of grief I had so carefully and so painfully constructed around my own heart for the past year did not just crack, it was utterly and completely demolished. The overprotective fear I had for my surviving son, Jasper, was replaced by a new, vast, and all-encompassing love for this little girl who was, in the most profound and literal way, a part of my own family. She was not a stranger. She was the keeper of my daughter's light. I knew, with the certainty that was as clear and as bright as the star on top of our sad little Christmas tree, what I had to do. This was not a coincidence. This was not a random act of fate. This was a gift, a second chance, a message sent from a place I could not understand, from a daughter I thought I had lost forever. I stood up, my own mind now a calm, quiet sea of absolute purpose. I picked up the phone. But I did not call the police to report a runaway. I called the emergency after-hours number for the Child Services Agency that was engraved on the back of Willow's bracelet. A tired-sounding woman answered. Child and Family Services, how may I help you? Hello, I said, my voice now clear and strong, full of a new and unfamiliar authority. My name is Isolde Vance. I am calling about a child in your care, a little girl named Willow, who was the recipient of a heart transplant last year. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Yes, ma'am, she said, her voice now sharp with a new, professional concern. She was reported missing from her foster home this evening. Do you have some information about her? I do, I said. She is with me. She is safe. She is warm. And she is where she is supposed to be. I took a deep, final breath. And I am calling to inform you that I will be at the office first thing in the morning to file for emergency foster guardianship. And then, I said, my voice full of a love so fierce it was a promise, I will be starting the legal process of adopting her. The social worker on the other end of the phone was confused, asking what my legal relationship was to the child, asking questions I did not yet have the words to answer. I just looked at the two small children, who had now, in the quiet warmth of the living room, fallen to sleep on the sofa together, side by side, my son's head resting on the shoulder of the little girl who carried his own twin sister's brave and beautiful, and now finally home for Christmas, heart. The social worker on the other end of the phone was silent for a long, stunned moment. I could hear the faint, bureaucratic hum of her office, a world away from the quiet, firelit miracle that was unfolding in my own living room. Ma'am, she finally said, her voice a careful, professional mixture of disbelief and protocol. I understand that this is an emotional situation, but the process for foster care, let alone adoption, is very complex. We can't just... I am aware of the process, I said, my voice quiet, but with a new, unshakable strength I did not know I possessed. I will be at your office at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning to begin it. But tonight, I looked over at the two small children, my son and the little girl who carried his sister's heart, now sleeping peacefully on my sofa, their small hands almost touching. Tonight, she is home, she is safe, and she is not going anywhere. There was another long pause, and then I heard something in the social worker's voice that was not in any manual of procedures. It was a sound of a profound and deeply human understanding. "Okay, Mrs. Vance," she said softly. "9 a.m. We'll be waiting for you." The days and weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork, of interviews, of the slow, grinding machinery of the legal system. But it was not a lonely battle. I was no longer a ghost in my own life. I was a warrior, a mother fighting for her child, for both of her children. The story, when it was told to the family court judge, was so unbelievable, so full of a strange and beautiful and heartbreaking synchronicity that it left the entire courtroom in a state of hushed, tearful silence. The judge, a kind older woman with wise, sad eyes, looked from the legal documents to me and then to the two small children who were now holding hands in the front row, and I could see in her eyes that this was not just a legal case for her anymore. The adoption process, which should have taken years, was expedited with a speed that everyone called a miracle. But I knew what it was. It was the quiet, powerful force of a story that was simply and profoundly meant to be. It has been a year now. It is Christmas Eve again. The house is not quiet. It is filled with the loud, chaotic, and beautiful sound of two happy, healthy, and bickering 9-year-old children. My son, Jasper, and my daughter, my new, wonderful daughter, Willow. The fortress of grief I had built around myself is gone. In its place is a real home, a home filled with spilled juice and muddy footprints and the brilliant, beautiful mess of a life being truly and fully lived. This afternoon, we did something I had not been able to do in 2 long years. We went up to the attic, together, the 3 of us, and we opened the boxes of my daughter Luna's things. We didn't cry. We told stories. Jasper told Willow about his twin sister, about her funny laugh, about her love for the color yellow, and Willow, in turn, listened with a quiet, solemn reverence, her hand often drifting to her own small chest, a silent acknowledgement of the precious, invisible thread that connected them. We decorated the tree tonight, not as 3 separate, broken people, but as a family. A new, strange, and patchwork family stitched together by a shared history of loss and a profound and miraculous love. As I tucked them into bed, I watched my 2 children, my son and my daughter, whisper secrets to each other in the soft glow of the nightlight. And I thought about the incredible, impossible journey that had brought us here. My daughter Luna had, in her own beautiful and mysterious way, simply changed her address. She had sent us a gift, a little girl named Willow, who had needed a mother's heart, and in doing so had healed my own. I had thought my act of kindness that cold, snowy night had been for a stranger. I had had no idea I was simply and finally bringing my own daughter home. An absolutely beautiful and moving story about a Christmas miracle that no one saw coming. What an incredible testament to a mother's love. Let us know what you think of this unbelievable, emotional story in the comments below. If you were touched by this story of a new family, please show your support by hitting that like button and be sure to subscribe for more powerful and heartwarming stories. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.